So this is the first time that I have had the opportunity to speak to the teens. I know a few of you. Not very few. Very few, like I know that one over there. And there's another one I know. So there's a couple of you that I know. But anyway, so I'm from Richmond, Virginia. So I had a 1,500-mile drive to get here. That was fun. Had great weather, had no traffic. So it was a good time. And I'm just thinking about the things that I'm going to talk about because this is one of my sessions, but I have some other sessions too. So anyway, I'm going to get this started because I want to talk about if you decide you want to be a part of this movement, what it's going to cost you. Because it's not free. There will be some work. There's some perks. But there's going to be some events. And I'm going to tell you about a lot of them because as old as I am, I've probably lived through most of them. All right, so anyway, I've entitled this Taking Hold of the Covenant. And the 21st century has become crazy, at least where I am. I'm an hour and a half south of Washington, D.C., which is a very fun spot. So if you're out here in the West, which I know a lot of you are, then maybe it's not quite as weird and crazy as it is where I am. Nevertheless, I am going to give you the difficult look. That's the perspective I'm bringing. There's going to be Q&A after this. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to tell you that you're going to instantly reject. And that's okay. Because you're not to believe what I'm telling you. If something that I say, you go, I don't know about that. Good. Go check it out. Pay the price and figure it out. I'm not going to do your homework for you. But I'm going to try to give you some insight into some things. Because believe it or not, as old as I am, I was once a teenager. It's true. So, here we go. When I say take hold of the covenant, what am I talking about? You may be here because your parents brought you. Very possible. That's how you're here. Maybe it's not something you chose to do. Maybe it was. I don't know. But the day is going to come when you're going to be of age and you're going to be responsible for making your own decisions. And this is one of the decisions you're going to have to make. You want to be a part? You don't want to be a part. You're the one who makes the decision. Your parents don't make it. God doesn't make it. The people who lead this feast don't make it. You only make that decision. And the day will come when you make it. You may have already made it. I don't know. And just for the record, I was told that the age group here is 13 to 19. Is that accurate? No, yes. There's yes over here and no over here.
There's also like 12-year-olds and 20-year-olds.
Okay. So the particular cross-section is going to fall, we're going to cross over the line of 18. And I have a couple of subjects in here that I'm going to be talking to people who are 18 and 19. That's how I was thinking about it. So for you that are less than 18, please bear with me when we get to that section. You'll know what it is. You will immediately know what it is. All right, so there's no problem there. And at the end of this presentation, Q&A, you can ask questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And I'm going to be here the entire feast. And if you have a question that you would like to ask me in a less than public setting, I am available. You just have to let me know when you want to ask. In my assembly, I do work with the teens, but I'm more of an adult guy. Okay, so I apologize if some of this is like, well, I've never even heard of that before. And out of the 48 slides, only 2 of them are college level. So I think for me, that's good. All right, so if you have questions at the end, I also, if you can see the board up here, if you look to the lower right corner in the footer, you will see a number. I put the number there because that's the slide number. And it will increment by 1 every slide. And so if you see a slide and we're talking about a subject and it's like 17, it's like, I need to ask about that. Remember 17. When we get to Q&A, you say, I have a question about slide 17. I'm going to pull it up, and then we're going to talk about it. So I put the slide number on pretty much every slide so that you can track with me. So there you go. All right, here we go. So taking hold of the covenant means that you're going to make a decision to sign up for what is called becoming a first fruit. Now, if you've been in this walk a little bit, You've probably heard of the feast, the agricultural feast, and that there's Passover, and then there's a wave sheaf offering, and then 50 days later, there's going to be Shavuot, and blah, 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 that type of thing. Well, it's called the first fruit offering, and we're talking about this because to make a decision to walk this way, you have to sign up to be a first fruit. So I'm thinking it's reasonable that you know what to expect. And I'm going to show you some things. Like I said, you're going to immediately reject them, and I'm okay with that. I get that a lot. So we're good, all right? So taking hold of the covenant means you're going to sign up to be a first fruit. I have to say, what kind of presentation is this? And I'll tell you, this presentation is for the following group of people. Okay? So this covers everybody, right? If you already know everything, this presentation is for you. Okay? Now, what's the cost? In Acts chapter 1, resurrection is taking place. Disciples are meeting with Yeshua. We're getting close to the chapter 2 where the Spirit falls. And they're having this discussion. And one of the things they asked of Yeshua, they say, and this is my interpretation of the passage, when is the regathering of the 12 tribes of Israel going to take place? Which, by the way, you teens that helped with that last night, thank you so much. And he says, I don't know. The angels don't know. Only God knows. But let me tell you what I need you to do. I need you to, this is your English Bible, I need you to be witnesses for me. So you think, well, what's with anybody here seen Law and Order? You know what a witness is? Step up there and you testify with something. Well, what is the Greek word that's translated into witness? It's martyr. So he is saying, I don't know when the regathering is going to take place, but I need you to become martyrs for the kingdom. But your Testament, your New Testament in English doesn't tell you that. So I'm just letting you know, what's the cost? It could very well be your life. Know that going in. It's important. All right. The next thing is, and nobody ever does, you're not going to remember everything I'm going to say because I'm going to say a lot. I talk very fast. But that's okay. Because the speakers, I'm just one of a dozen. The speakers take their PowerPoint presentations, convert them to a PDF, turn them over to you, which one of the two of you? Okay. That'll upload it to the website for the Feast of Sukkot, and then anybody who wants to get the presentation can download it. So if I have a suggestion in here for you and you like it but you don't remember it, download it. That's simple. All right, let's get started. I am a fan of a subject called archaeology. It's really started to kick off in the early 1800s. It picked up steam in the 1900s, and here we are in the 2020. So we've had almost 200 years of some mainstream archaeology. Now, in the 1820s, it was like maybe one every year. When we get to the 1920s, we're up to about one every month. And now, here we are in 2020, there's a new discovery every week. Worldwide, a lot of it's in Israel. I follow all of that because what happens is that people find documents from the first century. How many people here have heard something called the Dead Sea Scrolls? That's 1947. So if you were doing some type of Bible study, you were looking for some old Hebrew in 1946, you ain't got nothing because it didn't exist. But in 1947, it suddenly existed, and it's changed the world. And so I'm interested in biblical archaeology because there's a lot that I know I can learn. But the most important point for me is that there are people, believe it or not, there are people who say, Bible's not true. Oh, really? Send them to me, because I'm going to sit down and demonstrate from the records of other nations in other locales 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and I'm going to show where they are talking about their interaction with Israel that lines up exactly with what the Bible says, because they wrote it in their language on a stone with their government seals. I have that. I'm talking hundreds of them. And so you want to talk to me and say the whole Bible is a myth? No, you don't want to talk to me about that. It's not going to be a good day for you. So that's why I'm starting.
Why would people think that the Bible is a myth? That's dumb.
I totally agree. But unfortunately, there seems to be an increase of dumbness. I'm just serious. So, all right, the next thing. I need to tell you about the plan of God. I know it sounds like a big subject, but it's really not. The plan of God is very simple. God wants to have a family. He wants to have children. But there are some tricky things in there, and you're going to see them. I've included a couple of them. We need to take a look at the plan of God, but we need to start at the end. At the end, he would like to have a family, and there should be a relationship. That's what he's looking for. This is not a big deal. There's a lot of men and women. They'll come together and say, let's get married because I'd like to have a family. Well, there's God. He wants the same thing. It's just more complicated for him, and I'm going to explain that to you. But if you look at what you're being called to do as being in this walk, it has to do with God wants to have a family. It's not more complicated than that. There's some speed bumps. I'll cover a couple. You'll be okay. All right. One of the biggest problems that adults have, but so do teenagers, is making bad decisions. It happens. I am a professional. Yeah.
I made a couple of bad decisions in my life, but after Sukkot, I'm going to try to do my best to make better decisions.
That's okay, but remember, I'm going to cover that too. So don't get ahead of me.
I won't.
Okay, all right. So with bad decisions, we don't all make bad decisions all the time, but some people make good decisions. So we're going to talk about this. I have some things that I think will get the point across. Another thing that you're going to do if you're in this walk is political activism. And so what I want you to understand is there is a range of things you can do over here and over here. We'll touch a couple just so that you know what you're getting ready to step into. Now, I don't know where you live, what state. In the state of Virginia, if you turn 18, it is legal for you to vote. Now, I do not know if other states have it at 21. I do not know. But since there are people in here that are 18 and 19, then you may already be in a place where voting is an opportunity for you. So get ready. All right. Also on tap. This is my on tap. I'm telling you what's coming. Things to consider before you get married. Important. But that only applies to people who are going to be getting married. The role of women in the assembly. I see that there's several people out here that are ladies. All right, and there are some things you need to know. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Finally, there's a number of things that don't fall into a general category where I can have 6 slides to talk about this subject. So I called it miscellaneous, and I'm going to go through them. And finally, the question that I have to ask every time I give a presentation is, what are you going to take home from this? There needs to be something that you leave here. I'm not saying you need to memorize everything, remember everything, because I already explained how that's been solved. But I want to give you something so that you will think about what's coming in your life if you choose to walk this way. Now, if you choose not to walk this way, a lot of this is not going to have that much meaning for you. Some of it will. But some of it will not have a lot of meaning. So if you're choosing, as soon as I'm 18, I'm out the door. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Some of this presentation will not be good for you. Okay, but the rest of you, here we go. All right, as I said, with the Bible and archaeology, there's so much evidence, it almost falls on my desk weekly. I have access to a lot of resources. So I'm getting stronger in my faith every day. Because a new thing comes in and I'm like, oh, I was always trying to understand that passage in 1 Kings. And now I see it from the side of the Assyrians. And I mean, it's just over the top stuff. You can access a lot of that yourself. I'm going to show you, this is a website. You can access it for free. It's called Biblical Archaeology Society. They have a magazine that's free. It's called Biblical Archaeology Review. If you want to see what they're finding, you can do it. You can do it online. You can get the magazine sent to your house if you still deal U.S. mail. Okay? Anyway, this is here. You'll be able to see the path if you get the PDF. So the plan of God, he wants to have a family. But here's the thing. Here's the catch. He would like everybody to treat each other properly. That's his heart's desire. And also, he would like for you to treat his creation properly. He actually has some instructions in Torah that Moses wrote in which it talks about how to deal with creation. Some stuff to protect trees, protect animals, things of that nature. So in a nutshell, he is saying the following words. Okay, and if you notice the header, there's a question mark. Is this God speaking? Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. It's a song. And guess who wrote it? The Beatles. In case you all don't know who the Beatles are, that was a music group 60 years ago. So that was a long time before you guys. Anyway, so that was one of their songs called Imagine. And is that not the heart of God? He wants to have the people living in peace and then everybody getting along. Now, it sounds impossible, and I'm not here to judge God's intentions. I'm just telling you what the text says as I understand it. So, God had a choice. He could create robots, and they're all going to love him. And you could have a robot, too. You could have Alexa, when you get home, and says, "Oh, I love you so much." Really? Is that what we're looking for? Or do we want something that is heart and action oriented? That's where God's going. So he chose against the option of creating 10 billion robots that will love him daily. And instead opted for free will. What a mess. Am I telling the truth? What a mess. Well, you've been called to solve it if you decide you're going to walk this way. He's going to hand that mess off to you. I'm just getting you ready. All right, and then the problem we all have. We all got these drives, the drive to do this and the desire to do this and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff's going on, just saying. All right, I want to get into the next section, decision making. How many decisions do you make a day? Should I put on this shirt or this shirt? Do these socks match my purse? You know what I'm saying? A lot of decisions you make. A lot of decisions. So you got options. You could make a good decision. You could make a bad decision. I just made a bad decision recently. I'm going to share it with you. The weekend before this feast started, my wife and I went on a trip in Virginia up into the mountains during the time that Hurricane Ian was passing through. Okay? That's where I live. Okay? And so it happened that we rented a cabin that had a jacuzzi on the front porch. Let me tell you, that was good. Okay, so we're in the jacuzzi, out of the jacuzzi. So obviously my bathing suit's wet, so I want to dry it. So I leave it outside on the porch, hanging over a chair, go to bed, get up the next day, go out, grab my bathing suit. It's still wet. So I'm whining. So my wife says, "So tell me now, you left your bathing suit outside during Hurricane Ian, and you wonder why it's still wet." That was a bad decision. Okay, now there's grades of bad decisions. There was no big deal there because I brought 2 bathing suits and the cabin had a dryer. So I got past that one. But there are other bad decisions that have more consequences involved, and I am going to show you some examples. You can judge them yourself. This first example is going to be from the animal kingdom. In my opinion, I have to ask the question, is this monkey impaired? Under the influence. So if this monkey is going to do what it looks like the monkey's going to do, I would like to submit this as an example of a bad decision. Okay, so let's move from the animal kingdom into the human kingdom. We're a lot smarter, right? We got this, all right? So this is the human kingdom. The first question I have is, I want to see the video of how he got there. Okay? I don't think this is going to go well either. Then, I'm depressed now. And then this other thing comes by and I go, oh, there's hope. This is the hope slide. I need to make better bad decisions. So I need to up the level, Bad decisions 2.0, got to improve, all right? But I'll tell you what the problem is. I've been making bad decisions since 1969. So I'm kind of like in a rut. I got a pattern going on. I am consistent, all right? So it's something to overcome, but I do have the final good news. It is good decisions come from experience. And experience comes from making bad decisions. There you go. There is the answer to life. The next time somebody asks you what the answer to life is, Mark Twain had it right. Twain. Okay, I'll go with that. Thank you. I'm going to give you a great example of a good decision. This is dealing with what is known as patience and wisdom. Patience and wisdom. Here's the picture. The two greatest qualities to have in life. Patience and wisdom. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about political activism. If you're going to take hold of the covenant and walk this way, you can be sure the government is going to tell you what you can do and cannot do. Now, see, if you just follow along with what the government says, you'll be okay. But if you're going to take a stand for the kingdom, which is currently invading this world, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, then you and the government are not going to be best friends. So be prepared. And they will tell you what to do and what not to do. But here's the question. You have to decide if you're going to comply. And I'm going to tell you about somebody who did not comply. Her name was Moses' mother. And she did not comply. And that's why we have Moses. So, it's going to happen. I'm going to tell you one more thing about your relationship with the government. You can't see this, I'm sorry, but I will read it. The founders never intended for Americans to trust their government. Our entire Constitution was predicated on the notion that government was a necessary evil to be restrained and minimized as much as possible. And that is true. If you've read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and some of the other things that have taken place, everything goes to the states except for a very few things that are specifically listed to go to the federal government. Now, that's not today. Things are a little out of whack today. But that was the original design. The people in the states decide what is for the states. So we're trying to get back to that. It's going to be a hard struggle. So at the end of the day, you have to realize where you stand with the government, and you have to make the decision of what you're going to do. Now, if you go back to the parable of Yeshua with the coin and the fish, all right, what is Caesar's is Caesar's. I don't have a problem with that. But there are other things in which you're going to have to decide between the principles of God's kingdom and what the government's requiring. You're going to decide by yourself. And then you're going to accept the consequences that go with your decision. So you need to know about that. All right, continuing. You people that are going to be voting soon or voting now, and those of you who a few years later are going to be at an age where you'll be able to vote, I'm going to share with you just a few things to keep in mind when you choose who you're voting for. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I'm going to tell you where God stands on certain things. That's all I'm going to do. Bring it to your attention. God hates the shedding of innocent blood. Figure it out. God blesses those who bless Israel and curses those who don't. Personally, I think I'd like to be on the side of the bless. The borrower is the servant to the lender. Doesn't matter if you're in this walk or not. That's true. You borrow money from somebody, they're coming after you if you don't pay. Doesn't matter if you're in this walk or you are equal to Moses. Doesn't matter. All right, so that one is an easy one. If a man doesn't work, don't let him eat. We don't support laziness in this movement. You're getting called. You're going to have the indwelling spirit. You need to figure out where you fit, and then you need to become excelling in that area to contribute to the community, to be the testimony, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just trying to give you how this is going to unfold. One piece connects to the next all the way through this presentation. God is for marriage as defined in Genesis 2:24. You'll have to read that to find out what that means. God's purpose for government. They should punish evil. We currently have a problem with that, but We're working through it. Here's something that you should really work on. Be quick to hear and slow to speak. You can't imagine how much trouble that'll keep you out of. If you're going to walk this route, these are the things that are going to be your personal conviction. So if this is not going to be your personal conviction, sorry, this presentation is not for you. Yes?
What if we just don't vote?
Some people don't vote. I went through a period where I didn't vote. I'm not saying you should or should not vote, but I'm saying if you choose to vote, then you should take into consideration how God feels about certain things. That's all I'm trying to say. So I'm just trying to prepare you, because I went through several years and didn't vote. Then I suddenly changed my mind. I said, I should have a voice. So now I'm voting. All right. This is another one of my favorites. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when you're getting ready to do something with someone else, take a deep breath, pause. Would I want them to do that to me? And the answer is no. Then guess what? You don't do it to them. It's no more difficult than that. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's no more difficult than that. It's called making a good decision. Do they demonstrate character by being accountable or blame others? I have found some politicians who take responsibility for their actions, but I have seen other politicians who try to blame others for something that they messed up. It's a mix. If you're going to vote, you should learn about this stuff. If you're not going to vote, it's okay. All right, before marriage, I'm going to give you a list that you should consider discussing with the one who might become your significant other. I'm going to give you a list. Once again, you're not going to remember all of this, but I put down some things that I thought would be important because I've been through this for a while. All right, here we go. First, the song in 1975, Love Will Keep Us Together. Anybody heard of that song? That's wrong. Forget that. Love is not going to keep you together. Let me just tell you right up front. Love is not going to keep you together. Love, marriage, it takes work. It takes compromise. I'm going to go through these pieces. I'm just saying. Just be ready. Be ready. Okay, let's discuss the following subjects: credit and debt. Some might want to know. How about parenting styles? How the one person parents and how the other person parents. What if there is some conflict? You might want to talk about that. What beliefs are you planning on instilling in your children when they grow up before they reach 18? Might want to discuss that too. Top 3 places to live and not live. And if you got a dream home, I'd like to see it. Okay. How to deal with extended family. Hey, let me tell you something. You marry somebody, you're marrying their family. So you might want to look at the family tree. Go back 2 centuries, you'll be safe. How will family compromises be handled? I give you the word of God. Compromises will be required if you get married. You can take that to the bank. Okay? So, let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that you're not married yet. So this young man, he and his family, they go to the grandmother's house for Thanksgiving every Thanksgiving. Got big house, got the brothers, sisters, all these people coming there. And that's what they do the whole life. Now, the young lady, she goes to her grandmother's house with all her family on Thanksgiving, every Thanksgiving. Now they're married. What are we going to do? It's called compromise. You got to figure out what that looks like. So you should talk about it. Expectations. Forgive me. I had to put this word in there. When people are getting married, the following expectations do exist: sexual, partner, and financial. At some point in time, you're going to have to cross this bridge. I don't know when that is. I'm not here to tell you when that is. You need to talk to your parents about some of this stuff. I'm just telling you it exists. And in this walk, it's good to know. Bucket list. If you have a bucket list, I'd like to know. Now, some people don't have a bucket list. That's okay. You have a bucket list? Okay, good. Bucket lists are flexible. They do. There's movement. There's wiggle room. But some people don't have one. That's fine. But if you do, I'd like to know what it is. That's all I'm saying. All right, tattoos, piercings, and clothing choices. I certainly would like to know about this if I was getting married. I think that's all I'm going to say. That's probably a good decision. Careers in education, current and goals. Okay, are you looking forward to graduating from high school so you can work at McDonald's? Praise God. Okay, and you're going to know why I said that later. All right, so some people may not get married until after they graduate from high school. I know people who have not gotten married until after they graduated from high school. And so some of those people, they went to college. Some of them went in the military. Some of them went to McDonald's. So, I mean, it's out there. You probably know somebody in that line. So, I went to college. Yes, I have a degree. Yes, who cares? So, the thing is, I'm interested to know, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I'm just asking. Political views. If you have a political view, I'd like to know what it is. You may not have one yet. You may not have even formed one or thought about it yet. That's fine. But if you have one, I wish you'd tell me. Yes, sir.
What's a political view?
A political view could be like a person who is conservative, a person who is liberal. Does that help any? No. Yes, a little bit. Okay. So people who are conservative, they have leanings toward things like, I consider myself a conservative. So, for example, and see, I'm a difficult case here because I subscribe to what God says, how I understand it. So, God's conservative. So, when it comes to I think the government should be enforcing the laws on the books. So, when people commit crimes, there is a consequence to it. I support that. Liberals do not. So, I can't say that I'm a liberal in that subject. And there's several subjects like that in which I would find myself on the side of conservative. I'm not saying I don't have any liberal views, because I don't know, but I would say that's how I'd fall. So it has to do with if you have a bunch of people who lean that way, they might be called a conservative. So that would be me. All right, this list will get you started. You will add other things to it. You'll think of other things. He didn't ask this on the list. I don't know why. All right, everybody. This is the next 3-letter word. Be ready. Okay, this is the subject we're not going to talk about. All right? And the reason we're not going to talk about it is because we're not going to talk about it. Okay? However, I am going to tell you a story that comes out of the Bible. And you need to understand the story. This is the story of one of the 12 tribes. Jacob is the father, Yaakov, for you Hebrew-speaking people. All right? And his firstborn son was named Reuben. And he had 11 more. And you've probably heard the story before. But Reuben was the firstborn son. And so the firstborn son, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. Also, I want to identify that his mother's name is Leah. She happens to work here at the feast. Okay. As the firstborn son, they possess inheritance and leadership. So this means when the father eventually dies, they're going to take over the family. They're going to take over the finances. They get a double portion where everybody else gets a single portion. So now we're talking ching-ching. So this is big stuff. They are considered the principal heir and successor of the father as the head of the family. So now you're coming into a position of authority. So this is a power. This is a power thing. Firstborn gets this. All right? Now, I'm going to give you a verse. The double portion, I just wanted you to see this verse in Deuteronomy 21. This is where they talk about it. There's probably other places. And as a textual reference, sometimes the scripture will actually start off a verse talking about this. And what will happen is they will start by actually mentioning Reuben. And the children of Reuben, Israel's eldest son. So throughout Scripture, they will mention Reuben in a positive manner. All right, next. In Genesis 49:3, Jacob is preparing to die. So he called all 12 sons together so that he could give a prophetic statement of what's going to happen to them in the future. Who do you think is going to be the first one discussed? Firstborn son, Reuben. So 49:3, it says, "Thou art my firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength. the excellency of my dignity, and the excellency of power. That sounds pretty good so far, right? Let's go to verse 4. You're unstable as water. Thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed and defiled it. So let me tell you something about sex. Here is my perspective. In the Western Hemisphere, and I'm speaking mostly of America, but this does apply to Canada as well, a tradition exists, and I have been alive for a while, a tradition exists that makes sense to me. When two people decide to get married, and so there is the marriage ceremony, and they invite people to come to that ceremony, one of the things that I have noticed that happens at pretty much every wedding I've been to, and I've been to a few, people bring gifts for the bride and groom. And so after they go on their honeymoon, they come back home, they've got all the gifts sitting in the living room floor, and they start going through it, and they write thank you cards and blah, blah, blah. Okay, why am I saying this? Because in my perspective, sex is a gift that God gives when the marriage takes place. So God is within the tradition that I understand. So you'll work through this. I'm going to give you a reference before we get out of this. But anyway, in this particular situation, 49:4, I have a couple more verses. This is Genesis 35:22. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah. So he's married, he's got kids, and then he decides to sleep with somebody else. That's in the text. This is what happened. Then, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, he was indeed the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, so that the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright. So what has happened is because of a single event outside of what God has laid down, cost him everything but his life. That's pretty serious talking about decisions. He had a decision to make. He made a bad decision. It cost him everything for the rest of his life. So I'm just letting you know that my bathing suit, bad decision, I got by it. Reuben didn't make it. So just remember, even when Moses is going through the sons as they're getting ready to cross over the river to go into the promised land, he goes through the sons, starts with Reuben and says, "Well, let Reuben live and not die." Wow, I'm excited, Moses. I was touched by that. Really moved me. Okay. Rabbinical sources on this have included the right of descendants. The tribe of Reuben to become ruler over the tribes was transferred to Judah. The priesthood was transferred to Levi. I'm telling you, Reuben lost everything. I have another slide here that talks about when they planned to kill Joseph. He had the coat of living colors, and he was harassing his brothers. That's just a whole other discussion. They decided to kill him. Reuben stepped up and said, "No, don't kill him. Just throw him in a pit." His plan is that we're going to go down the road, and I'm going to come back and rescue him and turn him back over to his father. But instead, they sold him before Reuben got back. Reuben got back, pit's empty. Oh, my. What a disaster. Can't win. So, continuing in Genesis there, 43, it tells a little bit of the story to the point. Reuben was so upset with the situation because Joseph is gone now that he was willing to put his own two sons on the line, life and death, to cover this situation. Of course, that was rejected, but I'm just saying. Even as he tried to make things better and get back into relationship, he failed. Epic fail. So, once again, I'm only saying, when you have an opportunity to make a decision, make a good one. I'm leaving you with a non-link link. I have watched this video, and I have gotten permission from Leah Todd to include the information for this. This is a lady who speaks to young people, works at a pregnancy crisis center, and I was very impressed with the information she gave. She was a very good speaker. I requested permission to put the information into the slide. If you want to pursue this, you talk to your parents, you find out if you can, you could watch it. It's stronger than me. Stronger than me. All right, let's talk about women. We have an adversary. We're going to talk about him in just a minute. The plan of the adversary, you know what God's plan was. I want to have a family. Well, the plan of the adversary was, well, I think I'm going to divide up the body in half. I am going to add a verse to the New Testament that says women shall remain silent. And so how many centuries have women not had a voice? Yeah, like a long time. So I'll reduce it by 50%. And then I'm going to put together a conspiracy to conceal it. All right? Now, prepare yourselves. I'm going to give you 2 slides. These are college level. But you need to know, you don't have to understand, but you need to know what's going on in the background. Because if you're getting into this movement, you need to know so that you can take a stand. Because that's what you're being called to do. All right, here's the conspiracy. I'm going to talk about something called a critical apparatus. This is something when you are going to actually get into Bible study. I don't know how many people here study. I'm sure some of you read the Bible. But I don't know if anybody here studies the Bible. So when you get into study, you're going to be studying the Hebrew and you're going to be studying the Greek. This is dealing with the book of John in the Greek. You see the picture. I'll break it up here a little bit. This is the top part. This is the actual Greek text. And I'm going to show you the bottom part. And the bottom part is called a critical apparatus. What does that mean? As you can see in the slide that's on the screen, I have a word underlined in red and I have a line going to it. It's called a variant. What that means is that we're not sure if that's the right word in the Greek text. Because I have 5,000 Greek New Testament texts and none of them agree. So I have to build a New Testament and hand it off to somebody so they can print it in English so you can read it. You're just going to go with what I chose and you're not even going to know about it. That's how it works. And it's been working that way for centuries. So you need to know this if you're going to take this walk. So here's the apparatus. You'll see that there's words in different colors pointing to stuff. This is what the apparatus provides you. You'll notice it says 4. 4 was the superscript. 18 was the verse. The next thing is the letter D. There are 4 letters that this uses. A means we are sure this is the right word. B, we're kind of sure this is the right word. C, we really are not sure that this is the right word. And D, we have no idea what the right word is. Well, that's the problem here. So the apparatus is going to tell you that. It's going to show you the word in green. Then it's going to list a bunch of manuscripts that have that word. And then there's these double lines that says break. And then there's another set of words. And then there's a bunch of manuscripts that have those words. And it goes on infinity. You're going to run into this. When you get to the place, right now you probably don't teach. I don't know. Maybe you have some situations where you do. But when you sit in the seat of teacher, you're going to be responsible for conveying information to the audience. It is a good decision to know what you're talking about. And a critical apparatus will get you there. As I said, there's a few little points I want to cover quickly before we end. And I listed them under the word miscellaneous. The first one is triggered. When you're walking in this movement, people are going to seek you out to trigger you. Don't let them. You could carry mace, pepper spray, a taser. There are some other things that you could, rubber bullets are really coming into their own now. Or you could do what Moses did and pray for them, bless them, ask God to show them the right way to walk. Good luck with that with your flesh. It will get hard. But if you're being filled with the Spirit on an ongoing basis, it will be no problem. But you're not going to be there on day one. Just saying. All right, 1 Corinthians 3:18. Do not deceive yourselves. If any one of you thinks you're wise by the standards of this age, you should become that yellow word, so that you may become wise. So this yellow word here, it's 5 letters, and I want you to follow as I name each letter from the left to the right. Here you go. First letter is M. Second letter is O. Third letter is R. Fourth letter is O. And in this particular form, the last letter is S. But the root is an N. So let me spell the word again. You should become a M-O-R-O-N. Yes, you should become a moron. I'm just saying, when you look at your English Bibles, you will not find one that has translated this word as moron. Now, you're like, wait, what? What did moron mean in the first century? It meant a person who was not smart about a particular subject. I'm a moron in archaeology. I just like the pictures. I'm a moron about a lot of stuff. No problem. Okay? Well, this is saying there are people that were in the assemblies in the first century, and they were like the world. And he said, you know what? You need to become less like the world so that you can become wise according to God. That's what the passage says. It just happens that the word is moron. That's all.
So technically it hasn't changed.
Well, there is some additional definitions, though, because in the 18th century, I looked this up in the dictionary, there was an additional piece added about a person who was not, they were kind of like awkward or dim-witted or could not function at a certain level. I saw that definition added to this word. And this word currently is not used in public conversation very often. Yeah, maybe there's some people who say, you're such a moron. They may be using it as a figure of speech. Okay, yes?
Can I read my translation of it?
Yes.
It actually says, mine surprisingly, it does say fool, like become.
Fool is another definition in the first century. Yeah, and I'm not going to get into that. You can do the homework. Fool shows up in the text. Babel had fools. People who believe there's no God, it says they're a fool. There was actually a man whose name was Fool, who was married to somebody who eventually married King David. I mean, fool shows up a lot. I'm not going to get into it, but I just want you to know that I had a guy. I'm friends with a lot of international speakers. I had one come into my assembly. So we're getting ready. I've already gone through this teaching with the people there. And so I'm getting ready to turn it over to him. He's sitting on the front row. He doesn't know about this. And so I say, okay, everybody, and before I release this, his name is Avi Ben Mordecai. Before I release this to Avi, what do we need to do? We need to become, and everybody yells out, morons! And he's like, he had no idea what we were talking about. All right, another problem. Today, the saying is, if you got it, flaunt it. No. If you're in this walk, if you've got it, cover it up. Hide it. Yeah. Good enough. 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 4. God says he desires that everybody comes to a knowledge of the truth. That's his request. That's what he desires. So he gives you the responsibility. And the text says, I need you to pray for the leaders. Now, he used the word emperor or king. We don't have a king here. We have a president. I think they had a queen in England. Now they have a king. I think some other people have premiers, probably a prince here and there. So this title's not what's important. The text says, after it lists a half a dozen titles, is if they are in leadership, you need to pray for them. So I pray for President Joe and his administration staff. I pray for my governor and his administration staff every day. They'll never know me. Not that I care. But my job is to do what's requested of me. You're going to receive the same requests. Be ready. All right, next. In business, you need to be transparent and righteous. You need to... I'm going to tell you something. There's a story in Kings, and these people have gotten together and say, man, I can't wait until the Sabbath is over so we can open the store and cheat people. Yeah. I'm like, what? But anyway, in business, you need to be transparent and righteous. I got a couple of pictures to make the point. So let's say that you're a Chinese restaurant, okay? What is this?
That's a fortune cookie.
Yeah, so if they're coming in for chicken, but what if it's not chicken? Then in the fortune cookie you put, that wasn't chicken. So you are to be righteous in business transactions. You tell the truth. You don't count the cost. You tell the truth, and you let the consequences fall where they will. All right, so the next question is, are you a living epistle, or are you evidence of God's wisdom to the host? when you read Ephesians 3, and I don't want to take anything away from the living epistle Paul. I'm good with that. I do have something on that later, just one piece. When it's talking to about what you guys are doing, it says that your life is not just for the people of this world, but it's for the host, and it states that in the text. Your life, the way you live it, the way you transact business, the way you act with other people, believers and non-believers, is so the host can learn about the wisdom of God. It says it right in the text. So realize the level of this calling. All right, God, the gold standard for all humanity. If you sign up for this walk, and you're going to sign up to become a first fruit, you are working to become the gold standard of all humans alive on this planet. That's heavy. How does that look when you stand in front of the mirror? I'm just preparing you. If you're going to make a decision, and you will, because no decision is a decision. If you're going to make a decision for this walk, I want you to know what's coming. You will be the example on this planet. So get ready. Remember, unbelievers don't read the Bible. They read you. Okay? Now, if you want to learn more about these processes, you need to watch the movie Groundhog Day after you read the parable of the prodigal son. Now, the movie Groundhog Day is PG-13. So some of you are going to need to get permission from your parents before you watch it. But my recommendation is discuss the prodigal son. Take 10, 15 minutes. It's a short parable. I don't know, a dozen verses. Watch Groundhog Day. Then reread the parable again, and the entire thing will change before your eyes. And you will understand what God is going to do. Just a suggestion. Oh, let me ask you about this. The adversary, you heard it spoke of probably in other meetings. Enemy of God or an employee of the kingdom? Well, in Job 1 and 2, we have the adversary, and God comes, hey, what you doing? Adversary comes over and says, I've been walking up and down the earth. And God says, oh, have you seen my servant Job? Yeah, I'm not too worried about that enemy. I believe that our adversary is actually an employee of the kingdom, just like you. Now, he is a disgruntled employee, but that kind of shakes up how we deal with it. If you read 1 Corinthians 5, you're going to see where you have the authority to assign tasks for him to do in your role as a first fruit. You're going to have to wrap your head around that. All right, so if we find out that the adversary is on our team helping you do your job better, what happened to hell? Well, Time Magazine answered that. What if there's no hell? Well, there's not. And for some people, that's like, what? That may take you a couple of days to process. But if you could, and you can't, but if you could go back and look at Bibles that are from the 1900s forward, you'll see hell everywhere. I see your hand. As you get toward the close of the Bibles that are created in the 1900s, everybody's removed hell out because they found out it doesn't really exist. You're going to want to look into that further. Okay? All right, so my summary is you're going to need to make a personal conviction. You're going to have a personal conviction. If you're going to walk this walk, it's got to be you. It can't be your parents. I'm here because my parents brought me. That has zero value. No, it has a little more than zero. But the day comes when you're going to have to make the decision. It's going to have to be in your heart. You should have people in your assembly. You're going to have a congregational leader. There should be somebody sitting in the office of teacher. As you are beginning this walk, the person who is sitting in the office of teacher's responsibility is to answer your questions, to get you on the path so that you can study it and find it for yourself. Don't listen to what I'm saying. You have to authenticate what I am delivering to you. Or I could just mislead you. What if I'm wrong about something? Then what do we got? A mess. Do not trust me. Hold my feet to the fire. Hold the feet of the person who sits in the office of teacher in your assembly to the fire. because we're all in this together, and that's how we're going to accomplish the job. Next, is Yeshua a person of interest? I submit that he is. If you go through the history, which I have, all the way through the 20 centuries, you will see the impact he's had on world religions. Yes, I've gone through the world religions, Islam, a variety of others. It's amazing. Amazing. Matter of fact, you should buy the book, Person of Interest. Okay. Next, another book I recommend, God According to God. Now this book, not only do I have the book in my Kindle library, but I got the audio too. So I have the audio. I can play it while I'm driving down the road. It's called God According to God. A physicist proves we've been wrong about God all along. Incredible. Unbelievable. It breaks down the fact that you, as an individual, and God make up a team. And he waits for you to wake up in the morning so you can get started on the events of that day in which you are going to invade this evil world and make a difference, so the host can learn what God's up to. This is cool stuff. Very cool stuff. So, the kingdom of God is invading this evil world. You want to be a part? It's your decision. I suggest you make a good one. Thank you.